the Gaming Spectre 71 and welcome to a Warframe video. In this video I wanted to do a weapon video, and the weapon that I chose is the Zenistar. Now this is a weapon that you acquire once you hit the 500th day of logging into Warframe. Now I only just got it, so modding it, I didn't really equip that many stuff. I just equipped a Prime Fury, a Berserker, some Spoil Strike for some extra damage, and Volcanic Frost and Vicious Frost in order to increase, its base damage, which is heat, and to give it some extra blast damage. Now, in actual combat, it handles pretty much like the Sindo Prime, especially. Well, I only have one stance, which is the Rending Crane, which I also use for the Sindo Prime, and so handling the Zenistar is pretty much like handling the Sindo Prime right now, and it actually feels like, like it'll feel like actually using the Sindo Prime as well. However, the only difference is that it actually has a little thing that you can a little disc that you can actually drop on the ground, and that little disc will actually damage enemies as they go through it. So you can actually just leave it there. You can see on the top right corner of the screen how long before the disc actually returns back to the axe itself. And while that disc is actually dealing damage, you can still use the weapon itself, and you can actually go around and, well, kill things with it. Now, it's actually very interesting to actually note that the disc is actually, well, I guess that this would actually make, it will be useful for games such as survival, defense, places where enemies are funneled, and if you actually use it within places where enemies are going through, like a tight corridor, that would actually be the best place to actually use it for. And now this was the first time that I actually used the Zenistar. This is the first time, like this is the first actual match where I actually grabbed the weapon, equipped it into my inventory, and just decided to, let's just see what it does. So I'm still looking for positions to use it to see how far before when you do throw it. It works by you hold the button down, you hold the melee button down, and it'll basically get thrown. And I'm trying to get used to it. I'm also experimenting. Here you actually see me, I'm switching to my weapons. I'm curious to see if it'll actually stay there while I'm actually switching to my weapons, and it turns out it's still there. So the disc will stay down to the ground, even if you have your weapons, which is why I guess it makes sense that it actually has a timer telling you how long before the disc comes back to the axe. So essentially, while the disc itself, while the disc itself actually deals damage and it stays onto the spot, you can actually switch between any kind of weapon or any kind of Warframe power, and just while it deals damage to whatever it's actually there, you can just use the weapon. So I guess it would actually be very useful, strategic to actually use the weapon and you find a nice place where enemies are bound to actually funnel in, and then use it. Hold the button down, throw the disc down to the ground, and then just switch to whatever weapon you're wielding, and keep an eye up on the timer, how long before it actually comes back to your axe. Before it does come back to your axe, you can actually switch to the axe itself, so that when it comes back, you can actually immediately throw another disc down to the ground. And obviously, I guess you could use it. If you step inside the disc, it doesn't hurt you, so I'm guessing you can just use it to avoid taking damage from melee fighters. You can use it as this actually would be very useful against infected, since they are all melee fighters. So you can just throw the disc and either go on it and leave it to deal with enemies on melee while you shoot at them. It'll also be very useful to either, like, maybe in a defense mission or survival. It's basically where enemies are bound to come to you, basically, where they funnel in. And considering that the weapon itself is not actually a Warframe power, this will be very useful against enemies such as the Corpus Nullifiers. Now, I don't know, I haven't tested it. This video that I make is actually the very first time I actually used the Zenistar. And just trying to figure out exactly how can I use it, how useful is it, how long before it actually, how long before it actually comes back to my inventory, how far the disc goes, how far does it travel. I'm experimenting with just finding that right moment to actually put the disc down while I'm actually doing other things. It's actually, I guess it's a very good weapon if you like multitasking, because you can just keep the thing there, keep the DPS going while you do other things. So it's actually very useful for either covering you or helping you to attack melee fighters while, you know, having a steady supply of DPS on them. Um, Now, it does have a base, it does deal a base heat damage, so obviously you can combine it with other elements to make multiple elements. I don't know what the best element for it, I still only just got it, and I haven't even installed an Orcan Catalyst on it, so it's by default just just regular leveling up. And seeing as how it deals some very decent amount of damage, and it deals some very decent high amount of damage just to begin with, because these are actually enemies that are level 20 to 25, so considering it's actually dealing with them pretty nicely and pretty much killing them before they can even get to me, as long as the disc is there, yeah, it's actually a pretty good weapon. I can imagine it modifying it to deal high amounts of damage and just putting it in locations where enemies are sure to go through, so as to basically max out the amount of damage it deals. But yeah, I guess it's a bit difficult when it comes to melee weapons to level them up, since they don't. The Zenistar doesn't deal either slash, puncture, or impact damages, so giving it those increased modifiers for those particular damage procs actually doesn't seem to be any of use. In fact, this weapon specifically is an elemental weapon, so I imagine instead of focusing on either a critical strike or increasing its damage, I think just increasing its status effect and giving it a ton and ton of multiple elemental procs that will actually be the best use for it. And yeah, I actually found it to be very enjoyable to just leave the weapon there while I just use a secondary or a primary, just, you know. So basically, I guess you can actually use it there to keep the damage up. I don't know if the experience that it actually gives you will actually apply to the weapon you're holding, and or only itself, like only like if the Zenistar does a kill, the experience only goes for it, or it actually counts as increasing experience in general. So you can actually you can actually put it down to the ground, it kills enemies, you gain experience, and you can actually equip another weapon, such as either a primary or secondary, which needs to level up, and you can actually level them up and maybe give the weapon a decent supply of experience, which actually I guess would be useful. But yeah, this is just a small video which I decided to make to show my first impression of the Zenistar itself. I still haven't. I don't know if I should make a video once I've leveled it up maxed out. I mean, this is just to show that the weapon is pretty useful, and I'm looking forward to see how it actually does level up. But yeah, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you found this video very useful if you're just about to acquire the Zenistar. And once more, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye.